In the United States, the minimum wage has quickly become one of the most hotly debated topics. There are those who believe it should be drastically increased, and those who argue for it to remain as is. But what is the history behind this divisive topic?
The minimum wage was first introduced during the administration of Franklin Roosevelt, when the Fair Labor Standards Act passed during the tail end of the Great Depression in 1938. This bill sought to standardize labor laws throughout the country in several ways, including setting the first federal minimum wage at 25 cents an hour, limiting the work week to 44 hours, which would later be reduced to 40 hours, prohibiting child labor.
In this graph, you can see the changes the minimum wage has undergone over the years. The deep purple represents the minimum wage of that year, while the lighter purple represents its value in 2019 dollars. As can be seen, the minimum wage has reached its highest buying power in 1968, when it was raised to $1.60 per hour, which was the equivalent to $11.53 in 2019. Though the minimum wage has been raised over the years, its real value has actually decreased by approximately 1/3.
Though the federal minimum wage has been set at $7.25 since 2009, several states have set their own minimum wage at a higher rate. The graph on the right shows the minimum wage in every state in 2017. The states with the highest minimum wage, such as California and Washington, also tend to have higher cost of living.
So, does the minimum wage help or hinder the economy? Well, let's take a look at some of the pros and cons used in this debate.
Rising the minimum wage would increase economic activity and spur job growth. The Economic Policy Institute stated that a minimum wage increase from the current rate of $7.25 an hour to $10.10 would inject $22.1 billion net into the economy and create about 85,000 new jobs over a 3-year phase-in period. Economists from the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago predicted that a $1.75 rise in the federal minimum wage would increase aggregate household spending by $48 billion the following year, thus boosting the GDP and leading to job growth.
Increasing the minimum wage would force businesses to lay off employees and raise unemployment levels. The Congressional Budget Office projected that a minimum wage increase from $7.25 to $10.10 would result in a loss of 500,000 jobs. In a survey of 1,213 businesses and human resources professionals, 38% of employers who currently pay minimum wage said they would lay off some employees if the minimum wage was raised to $10.10, while 54% said they would decrease hiring levels.
Would raising the minimum wage increase or reduce poverty? A person working full-time at a federal minimum wage of $7.25 per hour earns $15,080 in a year, which is 20% higher than the 2015 federal poverty level of $12,331 for a one-person household under 65 years of age, but 8% below the 2015 federal poverty level of $16,337 for a single-parent family with a child under 18 years of age. According to the 2014 Congressional Budget Office report, increasing the minimum wage to $9 would lift 300,000 people out of poverty, and increasing it to $10.10 would lift 900,000 people out of poverty.
In contrast, a study from the Federal Reserve Bank of Cleveland found that although low-income workers see wage increases when the minimum wage is raised, quote, their hours and employment decline, and the combined effect of these changes is a decline in earned income. Minimum wages increase the proportion of families that are poor or near poor. As explained by George Reisman, professor of economics at Pepperdine University, quote, the higher wages are, the higher costs of production are. The higher costs of production are, the higher prices are. The higher prices are, the smaller the quantities of goods and services demanded and the number of workers employed in producing them. End quote.
A higher minimum wage would reduce government welfare spending. If low-income workers earn more money, their dependence on eligibility for government benefits would decrease. The Center for American Progress report in 2014 that rising the federal minimum wage by 6% to $10.10 would reduce spending on Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, better known as food stamps, by 6% or $4.6 billion. The Economic Policy Institute determined that by increasing the minimum wage to $10.10, more than 1.7 million Americans would no longer be dependent on government assistance programs. They report the increase would shave $7.6 billion of annual government spending on income support programs.
Another argument used against raising the minimum wage is that it would hurt businesses and force companies to close. 60% of small business owners say that raising the minimum wage will, quote, hurt most small business owners, according to a 2013 Gallup poll. Jamie Richardson, vice president of fast food chain White Castle, said that the company would be forced to close almost half its stores and let go thousands of workers if the federal minimum wage were raised to $15. Forbes reported that an increase in the minimum wage has led to the closure of several Walmart stores and the cancellation of promised stores yet to open. So what do we do? After reviewing a lot of the data and research surrounding the minimum wage, it's clear that this is not a black and white issue, and the answer lies somewhere in the middle. Though increasing the minimum wage would undeniably have positive impacts on many people's lives, its implementation would cause many undesirable repercussions. Because of this, finding a middle ground is a must. Perhaps rather than abruptly increasing the minimum wage to match the living wage, it could be done gradually over several years in order to mitigate some of its negative implications.